Lawyer humiliates child, then discovers her father is the judge. Amanda Reynolds took a deep breath as she faced the disapproving stares surrounding her in the bustling Westfield Mall. Her impeccable grey pantsuit now bore orange stains, and the documents she had meticulously prepared all night were soaked in orange juice. "Look what you did, you irresponsible little brat. Do you have any idea how long I spent preparing these documents?" Amanda practically shouted, pointing her finger at the curly-haired boy in a light blue shirt trembling before her. Tears welled up in the child's eyes as he tried to stammer an apology. It was an accident, ma'am. I tripped," the boy murmured, his voice broken by sobs. "An accident? An accident?" Amanda raised her voice even louder, ignoring the outraged whispers of the people around her. "Do you have any idea what you just did? This is the most important case of my career. How will my reputation look now? How am I supposed to present myself in court tomorrow with these ruined documents?" An elderly woman, around 60, tried to intervene. "Sweetheart, he's just a child. It was an accident." Amanda turned to her with a sharp glare. "And that gives him the right to destroy other people's work. Is this how children are being raised these days? To never take responsibility for their actions?" The boy was now openly crying, tears streaming down his round face as he lowered his head. "Please stop," he begged between sobs. "Stop! I've barely started," Amanda snapped, tossing the stained documents onto the nearest table. "You should be at home, away from people who have real work to do. Where are your parents? Probably just as irresponsible as you." At that moment, a food court employee stepped between Amanda and the boy. "Ma'am, please, you're scaring the child. It was an accident. An accident that could cost me the most important case of my career," Amanda shot back, but began gathering her soaked papers. "This isn't over. If I'd been taught discipline as a child, maybe I wouldn't be where I am today." With those words, Amanda stuffed the damaged documents into her briefcase, straightened her grey suit and strode away, leaving behind the still tearful boy and a small crowd of shocked onlookers. In her luxury apartment in the Upper East Side, Amanda spent the night recreating every document. Her eyes burned with exhaustion as she reviewed each argument, every legal precedent, every comma. The case of Blackwell vs. Hope Village Community was her chance to finally make partner at the prestigious Winston & Partners firm. Representing Victoria Blackwell, heiress to a vast real estate empire, Amanda was on the verge of securing the eviction of dozens of families occupying land allegedly owned by her client, a billion-dollar case that would draw media attention and, more importantly, the approval of the firm's senior partners. "Nothing is going to ruin this for me," she muttered, swallowing another headache pill with a sip of cold coffee. "Nothing and no one." Amanda had grown up on the outskirts of New York City, the daughter of a maid who could barely pay the bills. She attended public schools, faced prejudice and humiliation, but swore that one day she'd be on the other side of the table. Every insult, every closed door, every no she'd ever received had only fueled her determination. Now, at 35, she was about to claim everything she'd ever dreamed of. The price? Just her humanity. The next morning, Amanda arrived at the Manhattan Central Courthouse, wearing her usual mask of confidence. Perfectly tailored grey suit, chestnut hair pulled into an elegant ponytail, Italian leather briefcase, and heels that announced her arrival from yards away. No one would ever guess she'd slept less than 3 hours. As she walked down the hallway toward the courtroom, her phone rang. "Amanda Reynolds," she answered curtly. "Ms. Reynolds, this is Tyler from the office reception. I'm calling to inform you there's been a change in the judge assigned to the Blackwell case." Amanda stopped mid-stride. "What do you mean, a change? Was Judge Wilson replaced? Why?" "He had a health issue last night. The case will now be presided over by Judge Nathan Miller, recently transferred from the Washington, D.C. Superior Court." "Miller?" Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. "I don't know his record. What do we know about him?" "Almost nothing, ma'am. He arrived in New York City less than a month ago. All I could find out is that he's known to be extremely strict on ethical matters." Amanda hung up with a knot in her stomach. Last-minute changes were never good. Unknown judges were even worse. But she was prepared. She always was. As she entered the courtroom, Amanda spotted her client, Victoria Blackwell, already seated in the front row, dressed in Italian silk and understated yet exorbitantly expensive jewelry. The heiress looked bored, as if she were only there out of obligation. "Good morning, Miss Reynolds," Victoria greeted coolly. "I hope everything is ready. I don't want to waste any more time with these people." Amanda nodded, setting her briefcase on the table. "Everything is under control, Mrs. Blackwell. I've reviewed all the documents and reinforced our arguments on the legitimacy of the property titles. The original judge was replaced, but that won't change the outcome." Before Victoria could respond, the side doors opened and a tall man in his 40s entered wearing a black robe. Judge Nathan Miller had a stern face, marked by deep dark circles that betrayed sleepless nights. Amanda studied him carefully, searching for any clue that might give her an advantage. Then her gaze caught movement in the front row on the opposite side of the room. A curly-haired boy in a light blue shirt sat beside an older woman. Amanda's blood ran cold when she recognized the same boy she had humiliated at the mall the day before. The boy saw her too. His eyes widened in fear, and he immediately shrank back in his seat, clutching the arm of the woman beside him, likely his nanny or grandmother. Amanda quickly looked away, struggling to maintain her composure. Coincidence, she thought. It must just be a strange coincidence. But then Judge Miller glanced at the boy and gave a small reassuring gesture. The boy nodded timidly, and in that instant, Amanda understood the horror of the situation. The boy she had publicly humiliated, reduced to tears and practically traumatized, was the son of the judge who would decide the fate of her career. "All rise for the opening of the session," the bailiff announced. Amanda stood mechanically, her legs weak and her mouth dry. For the first time in years, she felt fear, real visceral fear that consumed her as Judge Miller watched her with a piercing gaze, as if he already knew exactly who she was. The session began with the usual formalities. Judge Miller proved meticulous, frequently interrupting to ask specific questions about details in the documents. Amanda tried to stay focused, but it was impossible to ignore the intense looks he sent her way every few words. It wasn't a look of anger or vengeance, as she might have expected. It was something more unsettling, a look of deep analysis, as if he were dissecting every word, every gesture, every breath she took. As she presented her opening arguments, Amanda felt her voice falter. She, who had always been known for her impeccable eloquence, now stumbled over her words, lost her train of thought, let documents slip from her hands. Every clumsy movement was met with Judge Miller's impassive gaze and the confused look of the boy who seemed unable to understand why the mean lady from the mall was acting so strangely. "Miss Reynolds, are you all right?" Judge Miller asked after Amanda had mixed up a case number for the third time. "Yes, Your Honor. My apologies." Continuing. Out of the corner of her eye, Amanda could see Victoria Blackwell shifting restlessly in her seat, clearly displeased with her star attorney's performance. When the first part of the hearing adjourned for a recess, Victoria wasted no time expressing her frustration. "What's wrong with you today?" she hissed furiously as everyone stood. "You look like an intern on their first day in court. This is the most important case for my company, Amanda. If you're not up to it, I can find someone who is." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Amanda swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Blackwell. I'm just a little under the weather. I promise the next part will be different." Victoria walked away with a look of disdain, leaving Amanda alone with her chaotic thoughts. She needed to pull herself together, needed to regain control. Her career, everything she had fought for, depended on it. As she headed to the restroom to splash water on her face, Amanda was startled by a grey-haired woman blocking her path in the empty hallway. "Miss Reynolds, isn't it?" The woman had a soft southern accent and a stern gaze. "I'm Mrs. Jenkins, Judge Miller's secretary for 15 years. Amanda tried to step around her. "Excuse me, we need to talk," Mrs. Jenkins interrupted, unmoving. "I was there yesterday, at the mall. I saw what you did to little Ethan." Amanda's stomach sank even further. So the boy's name was Ethan. It was a misunderstanding, she tried to explain, but the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. Mrs. Jenkins clicked her tongue in disapproval. Misunderstanding. The judge doesn't know what happened. Not yet. Ethan is a good boy. He didn't tell his father because he didn't want to upset him more. You see, his mother passed away less than a year ago. Cancer. Amanda felt the blood drain from her face. I didn't know. Of course you didn't, Mrs. Jenkins continued. Just like you didn't care to find out why a 7-year-old boy was alone at the mall yesterday. He had just come from therapy, you know. Judge Miller is doing his best to help his son cope with losing his mother. Yesterday was the first time Ethan wanted to get juice by himself after his session, a small sign of independence his father celebrated as a victory. Every word was like a knife to the conscience Amanda had buried long ago. Why are you telling me this? Mrs. Jenkins finally stepped aside. Because I think you should know exactly who the people are that you treat like trash. Judge Miller is a fair man. He'll rule on your case based on its merits. But I wonder if you'll be able to live with yourself after knowing what you've done. With those words, the secretary walked away, leaving Amanda frozen in the hallway. When she finally entered the restroom, she barely recognized the pale, troubled woman staring back at her in the mirror. Back in the courtroom, Amanda tried to rebuild her professional facade, but something had shifted. Every time she looked at little Ethan, sitting quietly and scared, she could no longer see just an inconvenience, an obstacle. She was beginning to see a child, a grieving child. During the second part of the hearing, the lawyer for the Hope Village community, Mr. Robert Johnson, a middle-aged man in a worn but dignified suit, presented the defense's arguments. He spoke about families who had lived on that land for over 30 years, about community schools built by the residents' own hands, about gardens that fed children and the elderly. Under normal circumstances, Amanda would have dismantled each of those arguments with surgical precision. She would have cited precedents, property laws, lack of formal documentation. She would have been relentless. But today her objections came out weak, hesitant, and Judge Miller seemed to notice every subtle shift in her behavior. Ms. Reynolds, would you like to challenge Mr. Johnson's argument regarding the length of occupation? The judge asked at one point. Amanda looked at her papers, then at little Ethan, who watched her with curious eyes, and then at the photographs of children playing in the alleys of Hope Village that the defense had presented. She hesitated. I'd like to reserve my counter-arguments for a later time, Your Honor. For the first time, a faint smile appeared at the corner of Judge Miller's lips. As you wish, Counselor. At the end of the preliminary hearing, as everyone began to leave, Amanda realized she had forgotten a folder on the table. When she returned to retrieve it, she found herself alone in the room with Judge Miller, who was organizing his own documents. For a moment there was silence. Amanda felt she should say something, anything, but the words seemed stuck in her throat. Judge Miller, We'll see each other at the next session, Ms. Reynolds, he interrupted without looking up. I expect you'll be better prepared. There was no accusation in his voice, just a professional neutrality that somehow was even more devastating. Yes, Your Honor. As she walked away, Amanda noticed a photo frame on the judge's desk that hadn't been there during the session. In it, a woman with serene beauty smiled beside little Ethan. But what made Amanda freeze was the undeniable resemblance between herself and the woman in the photograph. The same face shape, the same eyes, the same smile that Amanda rarely showed these days. With trembling hands, she left the room, her mind now an even greater whirlwind of confusion and guilt. In the courthouse parking lot, Amanda found Victoria Blackwell waiting beside her silver Bentley, her expression leaving no doubt about her displeasure. What was that in there, Amanda? Victoria attacked without preamble. You practically handed the first round to those squatters. I handed over nothing, Mrs. Blackwell, Amanda replied, trying to regain her usual composure. I'm just being strategic. I want to better understand Judge Miller's thinking before using our strongest arguments. Victoria let out a dry laugh. Don't give me that. I've worked with lawyers long enough to recognize when one is losing control. You turned pale as a ghost when you saw that boy. Who is he? Some ex-boyfriend's son? Amanda felt a surge of irritation. He's the judge's son, and no, I don't know either of them personally, if that's what you're implying. Well, then I suggest you pull yourself together before the next hearing, Victoria said, opening her car door. Or I'll have to reconsider our partnership. This case is too important to be jeopardized by whatever is going on with you. When Victoria drove off, Amanda remained standing in the parking lot, feeling the weight of the entire situation crashing down on her shoulders. Your client was unhappy. The judge seemed to know every one of her secrets, and she had humiliated a child already suffering from losing his mother. In her car, Amanda turned on the engine but couldn't bring herself to drive. For the first time in many years, tears began to stream down her face. They weren't tears of anger or frustration, like the ones she sometimes shed when she lost a case. They were tears of shame, of guilt, feelings she had learned to suppress since childhood. That night, Amanda couldn't work on the case as she had planned. Instead, she spent hours researching Judge Nathan Miller, trying to understand more about the man who now held her professional fate in his hands. She discovered he had been one of the most respected judges in Washington, D.C., known for his unwavering integrity and rulings that often favored the more vulnerable side, as long as it was supported by law. His transfer to New York City had been requested by him personally, after the death of his wife, Emily Miller, who had fallen victim to aggressive cancer. Amanda found few photos of the judge, always in professional settings, but in one, taken at a charity event 2 years prior, he appeared beside his wife. The resemblance between Amanda and Emily was truly unsettling. The same skin tone, the same face shape, even the same hair type, though Emily wore hers loose, while Amanda always kept hers tied back. Was that the reason for the intensity in the judge's gaze? Had he recognized the resemblance? Or was it simply the natural disdain of a father seeing the person who had made his son cry? On impulse, Amanda opened a drawer in her desk and pulled out an old photo album, something she rarely looked at. On the first pages, a young Amanda, no older than 20, smiled beside her mother in front of Columbia Law School. It was a genuine smile, full of hope and determination. A smile just like Emily Miller's in the photograph. "What happened to me?" Amanda murmured, running her fingers over the faded image. She remembered that day perfectly. She had just been accepted as the top candidate for Columbia Law School, fulfilling the dream her mother, a housekeeper who had barely finished elementary school, had nurtured for years. "You'll be a lawyer, my girl," her mother always said. "You'll defend those without a voice." When had that dream turned into a relentless pursuit of status and money? When had she started using her knowledge of the law not to defend the voiceless, but to silence them further? Amanda closed the album, unable to continue that trip into the past. She looked at the case documents scattered across her desk, reports talking about unauthorized occupation, urban development needs, property value appreciation, cold terms that masked the true meaning of what her client wanted: to evict entire families from their homes to build a luxury complex, families with children like Ethan. The next morning, Amanda arrived at Winston & Partners earlier than usual. She needed to review the case from a new perspective, something she had never done before. Instead of focusing solely on arguments favoring her client, Amanda began carefully analyzing the documents presented by the Hope Village Community Defense. There were proof of residence records dating back decades, school records of children born and raised in the community, receipts for improvements made by the residents themselves. Paul, the firm's intern, found her immersed in that unusual stack of papers. "Ms. Reynolds, Mrs. Blackwell is on line 3. She said it's urgent." Amanda nodded, picking up the phone. "Good morning, Mrs. Blackwell." "Good morning." "It's past 10, Amanda. I've tried your cell several times." "I'm sorry, I was focused on reviewing the case," Amanda replied, keeping her tone professional. "Fights are great because we need to talk about a new approach," said Victoria coldly. "I just had lunch with a friend from the court. Apparently this Judge Miller has a reputation for being incorruptible, a true knight of justice." "Yes, that's what my research indicated too. But everyone has a price, don't they?" Victoria's voice took on a conspiratorial tone. "My friend mentioned that the judge's son attends an extremely expensive private school. A school that coincidentally is struggling financially and could benefit from a generous anonymous donation. Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. Mrs. Blackwell, what are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything, dear, Victoria interrupted with a light laugh. I'm merely commenting on educational philanthropy. By the way, I have some additional documents about the land that we might need to, let's say, adjust before the next hearing. Nothing substantial, just a few dates and signatures that need to align with our version of events. Amanda gripped the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. Mrs. Blackwell, falsifying documents is a crime, and any attempt to influence a judge— Amanda, Victoria sighed as if speaking to a naive child. Don't be so dramatic, they're just administrative adjustments, everyone does it. How do you think we built our fortune? Through luck? A heavy silence settled between them. I'll send the documents to your office this afternoon, Victoria continued. I expect them back properly adjusted by tomorrow. Oh, and Amanda, don't disappoint me again. There are plenty of talented lawyers who would kill for a chance to work for me. The call ended, leaving Amanda with a sickening feeling. For years, she had ignored the rumors about the Blackwell family's questionable methods. After all, every great empire had its secrets, didn't it? It was easier not to ask questions, not to question the origin of the documents she received, not to think too hard about the consequences of her legal victories. But now, with the image of little Ethan still fresh in her mind, with Mrs. Jenkins' voice echoing in her ears, with the memory of Judge Miller's piercing gaze, Amanda could no longer maintain that convenient moral blindness. Grabbing her purse and coat, she quickly left the office, ignoring her colleagues' surprised looks. She needed air. She needed to think. With no clear destination, Amanda drove for nearly an hour until she found herself in a neighborhood she hadn't visited in years, Astoria on the north side of New York City, the neighborhood where she had grown up. She parked the car in front of a small municipal cemetery, the place where her mother had been buried 3 years earlier, the victim of a sudden heart attack. Amanda hadn't been present at the funeral. She was in the middle of an important case. She couldn't afford to take a day off. She had sent expensive flowers and a wreath with a generic message written by the office secretary. Now standing before the simple grave, Amanda felt the weight of all her choices. "I'm sorry, Mum," she whispered, touching the cold headstone. "I've become exactly the kind of person you taught me to fight." The realization struck her, like lightning. When had she become so cold, so calculating, so cruel? She who had grown up watching her mother be humiliated by her employers was now doing the same to vulnerable people. She, who had sworn to use the law as an instrument of justice, had turned it into a weapon for the powerful. And worst of all, she had made a child cry, a child already suffering the pain of losing his mother. With tears in her eyes, Amanda made a decision that would change the course of her life forever. Upon returning to the office, she ignored the documents sent by Victoria Blackwell, and instead spent the entire afternoon reviewing every detail of the case in a new light. The more she read, the more she realized there was something deeply wrong with the documents submitted by her client. The property deeds had subtle but significant inconsistencies, dates that didn't match public records, signatures that appeared to be written by the same hand, stamps from agencies that no longer existed at the time indicated. Using her contacts, Amanda managed to access old records she wouldn't normally consult. She discovered that the disputed land had, in fact, been informally granted for community use by the original owner, a philanthropist who had died without direct heirs. Victoria Blackwell had apparently obtained the documents through a questionable succession process, claiming to be a distant relative of the philanthropist, a relative whose existence Amanda now seriously doubted. When the office clock struck 8 in the evening, Amanda was certain she was defending a fraud that would cost hundreds of families their homes. The morning of the next hearing, Amanda arrived at the courthouse with a serene expression that didn't match the internal chaos she felt. In a personal act of defiance, she had left her hair down, falling over her shoulders in natural waves, something she never did in professional settings. Victoria Blackwell waited in the hallway, impeccable in her white Burberry, a folder in hand. "Good morning, Amanda. Did you receive the documents I sent?" "I did," Amanda replied calmly. "And?" And I made no changes. Victoria's smile froze. What do you mean? I don't think I made myself clear yesterday. You were perfectly clear, Mrs. Blackwell, Amanda said, keeping her voice low but firm. So clear that it made me re-examine the entire case, and I found inconsistencies I cannot ethically ignore. Victoria's face hardened. I'm not paying you to have an ethical crisis, Amanda. I'm paying for your best work. And that's exactly what you'll get today. My best work as an attorney sworn to uphold the law. Before Victoria could respond, the courtroom doors opened. Judge Miller was already in his seat, his expression unreadable. Beside him lay a stack of documents Amanda didn't recognize. In the front row, little Ethan sat next to Mrs. Jenkins. When he saw Amanda, the boy didn't shrink back as he had before. Instead, he watched her curiously, perhaps noticing the subtle change in her appearance. The hearing began formally, with Judge Miller explaining that due to new information, he had requested additional documents related to the disputed land. Before we proceed, I must inform you that I've received a report from the Property Registry, office raising serious concerns about the authenticity of some of the submitted titles, the judge stated, looking directly at Amanda. Ms. Reynolds, are you aware of these issues with the documents? It was the moment of truth. Amanda could feel Victoria Blackwell's furious gaze burning into her back. She could imagine the end of her career at the prestigious firm. She could see years of hard work going down the drain. But she could also see Ethan watching her with attentive eyes, and somehow she felt her mother's spirit present in that room. Yes, Your Honor, Amanda answered, her voice clear and steady. Over the past 48 hours, I conducted an independent investigation that led me to seriously question the validity of the documents submitted by my client. As an officer of the court, I feel obligated to bring these concerns to the tribunal's attention. A murmur spread through the room. From the defense table, Mr. Robert Johnson stared at Amanda in astonishment. And for the first time, a genuine smile appeared on Judge Miller's face. I am formally requesting a recess in this hearing, Your Honor, continued Amanda, ignoring Victoria's growing outrage. I would also like to request permission to withdraw from representing Mrs. Blackwell due to an insurmountable ethical conflict. Excuse me? Victoria stood up furious. You can't do this. You're contractually obligated to represent me. The judge banged his gavel. Order in the court, Mrs. Blackwell. You will have your chance to speak when appropriate. Turning to Amanda, he continued, Ms. Reynolds, given the serious nature of your claims, I will grant your request for a recess and withdrawal. Mrs. Blackwell, you will have 15 days to secure new legal representation. This is outrageous, shouted Victoria, storming toward the table where Amanda stood. You're finished, Reynolds. Finished. No decent firm in this city will hire you after I'm done with you. Two bailiffs quickly moved to restrain Victoria, who kept shouting threats as she was escorted out of the room. Amanda remained composed, though inside she felt a confusing mix of relief and terror. She had just thrown away years of her career, but for the first time in a long while she felt clean. As everyone began to leave, Judge Miller called to her. Ms. Reynolds, a moment, please. Amanda approached the judge's bench with a racing heart, unsure what to expect. I'd like to see you in my chambers in half an hour, he said with a neutral expression. There are matters we need to discuss. Mrs. Jenkins will look after Ethan while we talk. Amanda nodded, feeling both relieved and apprehensive. As she waited in the hallway, she saw Ethan leaving the courtroom, holding Mrs. Jenkins' hand. The boy stopped when he saw Amanda and, after a moment's hesitation, approached timidly. Are you still mad at me about the juice? He asked in a small voice. Amanda's heart ached at his words. No, Ethan. I never should have been mad. It was an accident and I overreacted. I'm the one who should apologize to you. Ethan considered. This with the solemnity only a 7-year-old could muster. My dad says when you do something wrong you have to make it right, he finally said. Did you make it right? Amanda smiled sadly. I'm trying, Ethan, I really am. The boy nodded, seeming satisfied with the answer. Is that why your hair looks like my mum's in the picture? The question caught Amanda off guard. I didn't know it did, she answered honestly. "But I've been told we look a little alike." "Yeah," Ethan agreed simply. "And you looked sad like me when my mum left. That's why I didn't tell my dad what happened. I thought you already had too much sadness." With these profoundly wise words, the boy was led away by Mrs. Jenkins, leaving Amanda with tears in her eyes and immense gratitude for a compassion she surely didn't deserve. 30 minutes later, Amanda knocked on Judge Nathan Miller's chamber door, ready to face whatever came next. "Come in, Ms. Reynolds," came the reply from inside. Entering, she found the judge seated behind his desk, the photograph of his late wife now prominently displayed. "Please, sit," he said, his tone softer than Amanda expected. As she settled in, the judge studied her for a moment before speaking. "I must say, your actions today surprised me, Counselor." "They surprised me too, to be honest," Amanda replied with uncharacteristic candor. "I know who you are, Amanda Reynolds," the judge continued, leaning back in his chair. "I know your reputation. The relentless lawyer, the one who never loses a case, the one who would do anything to win." Amanda swallowed hard but didn't look away. "I also know what happened at the mall," he added, making Amanda's heart stop for a moment. "Ethan may not have told me, but there are security cameras, you know. A friend who works there sent me the video concerned about my son." "Judge Miller, He raised his hand, gently cutting her off. "I'm not here to judge you for that. Not personally, at least. As a father, I admit I was furious when I saw that video. As a judge, I've watched with interest your transformation these past few days." The judge stood and walked to the window, gazing at the city below. "You know, my wife Emily was an elementary school teacher. She firmly believed people can change, that no one is just one thing, and that sometimes we need difficult encounters to rediscover who we really are." Turning to Amanda, he continued, "What you did today, exposing your own client, risking your career for the truth, that shows a character few would have the courage to display." "I only did what I should have done from the start," Amanda replied, feeling the weight of years of neglected ethics. "Exactly," the judge smiled. "And that's why I want to make you an offer." Amanda looked at him, puzzled. "What kind of offer?" "The Hope Village community needs competent legal representation. Mr. Johnson is dedicated, but he doesn't have the experience or resources to face the next lawyer Mrs. Blackwell will hire. And believe me, she'll hire the best money can buy." "Are you suggesting that I'm suggesting you use your talent for the original purpose of the law, Ms. Reynolds. Justice." The judge returned to his desk and picked up a file. "Here's additional information about the community and the case. The decision, of course, is yours, but something tells me you're ready for a new path." Amanda took the file with trembling hands, feeling both terrified and more alive than ever. "Why are you doing this?" she finally asked. "Why give me this chance after what I did?" Judge Miller smiled, glancing at the photo of his late wife. "Because Emily would have done the same, and because Ethan saw something in you that I only realized today, potential for change." Standing, he extended his hand. "I hope to see you again in this courthouse, Ms. Reynolds, but next time defending the right side." When Amanda left the judge's chambers, her legs barely held her up. In just a few hours, her life had been turned upside down. Her career at the prestigious firm was certainly over. Evelyn Blackwell's enmity would mean closed doors at nearly every major firm in the city. But for the first time in years, Amanda breathed freely, as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders, and with the Hope Village file in her hands, she felt something she'd forgotten: purpose. In the parking lot, she found her car, with a flat tire and a note on the windshield. "This is just the beginning. VB." Amanda laughed, a genuine, liberating laugh. If Victoria thought vandalizing her car would intimidate her, she clearly had no idea who Amanda Reynolds was. Not the Amanda of recent years, the cold calculating machine, but the real Amanda, the maid's daughter who studied by candlelight when the power went out, who worked 3 jobs to pay for law school, who swore to her mother she'd use the law to make a difference. That Amanda had awakened, and she was just getting started. The next morning, Amanda woke to the insistent buzz of her apartment doorbell. Still groggy, She threw on a robe and went to answer. It was Paul, her former intern at Winston and Partners. "Paul, what are you doing here at—" She glanced. At her watch, 7 in the morning. The young man seemed nervous, adjusting his glasses repeatedly while holding a cardboard box. "Mrs. Reynolds, I came to bring your things." He pushed the box toward her, looking around as if afraid of being seen. "Mr. Winston had your office cleared out yesterday, right after Mrs. Blackwell called demanding your termination." Amanda took the box, feeling the weight of 10 years of her career reduced to a few personal items, a fountain pen she'd received. Upon graduation, some photos, legal books with notes, a cactus that had survived for years on her windowsill. "Thank you for bringing these, Paul." She noticed the young man still seemed uneasy. "Is there something else?" He lowered his voice. "I just wanted to say that, well, what you did yesterday in court." He hesitated, as if the words might cost him his internship. "It was very brave. A lot of people at the firm are talking about it." "Talking badly, I imagine," Amanda replied with a half-smile. "Actually, not everyone." Paul adjusted his glasses again. "Some of the younger associates, well, let's just say not everyone is comfortable with certain clients the firm represents." Amanda nodded, surprised by this small show of support. "I should go," Paul continued, already stepping back. "Mr. Winston can't know I came here. Oh, and there's one more thing I thought you should know. Mrs. Blackwell has already hired another lawyer, Mr. William Parker." Amanda felt a chill. William Parker was known in legal circles as the Shark, a lawyer as ruthless as he was unethical, famous for destroying the reputation of anyone who stood in his way. "Thanks for the warning, Paul. Take care." After the young man left, Amanda placed the box on the kitchen table and made coffee. Judge Miller's words echoed in her mind. "Next time, stand on the right side." She glanced at the Hope Village file he had given her, still unopened. Was she really considering this? Abandoning a decade of corporate law to defend a low-income community against one of the most powerful and vindictive families in New York City? The phone rang, interrupting. Her thoughts, it was an unknown number. "Amanda Reynolds," she answered, her tone professional out of habit. "Mrs. Reynolds?" A hesitant male voice. "This is Robert Johnson, the lawyer for Hope Village. Judge Miller gave me your contact. He said you might, well, that you might be willing to help us." Amanda's heart raced. It seemed the universe was conspiring to push her in this new direction. "Mr. Johnson, I was just thinking about the case. Can we meet to discuss it further?" "Of course." The man's voice brightened noticeably. "Could you come to the village? The people here would like to meet you, and you could see what we're trying to preserve." Amanda hesitated. She had never set foot in a community like that. For years she'd only seen such places from afar, through the windows of her Lexus. Places her wealthy clients wanted to demolish, transform, revitalize. "I'll be there in 2 hours," she finally decided. Hope Village was on the east side of New York City, nearly an hour's drive from Amanda's Upper East Side apartment. As she moved away from the city's financial center, the luxury buildings gave way to simpler structures. The well-maintained pavement turned potholed. The ornamental trees disappeared. Following the GPS directions, Amanda turned onto a narrow street lined with modest but well-kept houses. Children played in the street, elderly residents chatted on the sidewalks, and colorful clotheslines stretched back and forth, creating a mosaic of laundry drying in the sun. She parked her Lexus in front of a small community center, feeling the curious gazes of the residents. Clearly, it wasn't common to see cars like hers in that area. She stepped out, silently grateful she'd chosen a simple outfit, jeans, a white t-shirt, and a light blazer, instead of her usual tailored suit. Robert Johnson was waiting at the entrance. He looked older than he had in court, probably in his 50s, with graying hair and kind eyes behind plain glasses. His suit, though clean and respectable, was clearly old and had been mended multiple times. "Ms. Reynolds," he greeted her enthusiastically, extending his calloused hand. "So glad you could make it. Please, come in." The community center was a simple hall, with plastic chairs arranged in a circle and handmade posters on the walls. Amanda noticed one displaying the history of Hope Village, with black and white photos of the first residents who had arrived in the 1970s. About 20 people waited nervously in their seats. There were women holding infants, elderly folks with hands marked by hard labor, and young people with wary expressions. Everyone fell silent when Amanda entered, creating an awkward pause. "Everyone, this is Ms. Amanda Reynolds," Robert introduced. "Judge Miller suggested she might be able to help us with our case." An elderly woman with white hair tied in a bun struggled to stand, leaning on a cane. "The same lawyer who was defending that woman trying to kick us out?" she asked bluntly, her strong northeastern accent unmistakable. Amanda felt her face flush but held her ground. "Yes, ma'am, that was me. But I no longer represent Mrs. Blackwell." The old woman stepped closer, studying Amanda with eyes that, despite her age, remained sharp and clear. "My name is Mrs. Robinson. I've been here since the beginning, nearly 50 years. I've seen plenty of folks like you come around promising help, making grand claim." She paused. "Why should we trust you?" It was a fair question. So fair that for a moment Amanda didn't know how to respond. She opted for the only thing that felt right, the truth. "There's no reason you should trust me, Mrs. Robinson," she said simply. "Not yet. I spent years defending people like Victoria Blackwell, helping them get what they wanted without questioning their methods or the consequences." Amanda took a deep breath. "But I'm trying to change that. And if you give me a chance, I promise to do everything in my power to fight for this community." A silence followed as the residents exchanged glances, weighing her words. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, back to the story. Finally, Mrs. Robinson nodded, as if reaching a decision. "At least, you're honest? That's more than I can say for most lawyers I've met." She sat back down. "We'll show you what's at stake." For the next 2 hours, Amanda listened to stories she'd never considered in all her years, representing developers and real estate speculators. Stories of people who had built their homes with their own hands, brick by brick, who had raised children and grandchildren on these streets, who had turned an abandoned lot into a thriving community with makeshift schools, shared gardens, and small businesses. Robert showed Amanda documents proving the land had, in fact, been informally granted by the original owner, Franklin Hope, a philanthropist who believed unused land should serve those in need. With no direct heirs, Franklin had left a will officially, designating the land to the community, but the original document had mysteriously disappeared after his passing. That's when the Blackwell family showed up, claiming to be distant relatives of Mr. Hope, Robert explained. They presented documents we'd never seen before, property titles that contradicted everything we knew, and suddenly we received conviction notices. Amanda flipped through the documents with growing indignation. As a property law specialist, she clearly saw the inconsistencies in the papers Victoria had submitted. "These documents have serious authenticity issues," she noted. "And do you have witnesses who can confirm Mr. Hope's original intention?" "Yes," replied a woman seated near Mrs. Robinson. "I worked as a housekeeper in Mr. Franklin's home for 20 years. He personally told me about the will, showed me the document before filing it, said it was his way of giving back to the city that welcomed him as an immigrant." Amanda jotted down quick notes, her legal mind already strategizing. "There's more," Paul added hesitantly. "We recently found out Blackwell Enterprises is already pre-selling luxury apartments that would be built here, before the court case is even settled." "That's illegal," Amanda stated, stopping her writing. "They can't market properties on land still under legal dispute." "They can if no one stops them," Mrs. Robinson said bitterly. "People like them always find a way." Amanda closed her notebook, feeling a determination she hadn't experienced since law school. "Not this time, Mrs. Robinson. Not this time." After the meeting, Paul offered to show her the rest of the community. Walking through Hope Village's narrow streets, Amanda saw what documents and numbers couldn't show. A real living community full of stories and connections. She visited the small community health clinic run by volunteer doctors, stopped by the makeshift school where children received tutoring, saw the communal gardens that provided fresh food for those in need. Everywhere there were signs of a community that cared, organized, and resisted. "People think places like this are just problems, just poverty," Paul remarked as they walked. "They don't see the human richness here." Amanda nodded, ashamed. She'd once been one of those people. "Thank you for showing me, Paul. This changes everything." As they were about to head back to the community center, a girl around 10 ran up to them. Dr. Paul, she called, breathless. "There are strange men taking pictures of the houses near the field." Paul and Amanda exchanged worried glances and followed the girl to an open area where kids usually played soccer. Sure enough, 3 men in suits with professional cameras and clipboards were photographing the surrounding houses and taking notes. "Excuse me," Paul approached. "Can I help you?" One of the men, clearly the leader, turned with disdain. "Just doing a preliminary survey, nothing to concern yourself with." "This is private property, part of a community," Paul insisted. "You can't just walk in and photograph people's homes without permission." The man laughed, pulling a card from his pocket. "Roger Brooks, project manager for Blackwell Enterprises. This land belongs to our company, so technically we're on our own property." He eyed Amanda, narrowing his gaze. "And you're Ms. Reynolds, aren't you? Thought you were working for us." "Not anymore," Amanda replied coldly. "And I suggest you and your team leave now. This land is still under litigation, and by conducting this preliminary survey, you're potentially committing trespassing." Roger visibly stiffened at the unexpected presence of a lawyer. "Just following orders," he muttered, putting away his camera. "Ma'am, Blackwell wants the project to move forward as quickly as possible once the judge rules in our favor." "If the judge rules in our favor," corrected Amanda, "which, believe me, is far from certain." When the men left, a small crowd of residents had already gathered around, worried about what was happening. "This is happening more and more often," Paul explained to Amanda. "They come, intimidate the residents, make it seem like removal is inevitable. Some families have already moved out afraid." Amanda felt her anger rising. It was a tactic she knew well, creating a sense of inevitability, making the community feel defeated before the legal battle was even over. "We need to act fast," she said, turning to the gathered residents. "They're counting on your fear, but together we can fight. And I promise you, this time you'll have someone truly on your side in court." As she drove back home, Amanda barely recognized the person she had been just days before. How could she have ignored for so long the real impact of her work? How could she have reduced people like Mrs. Robinson to mere obstacles to be removed? So for progress? The image of little Ethan shrinking in fear after she had humiliated him, now mixed with the faces of the children in Hope Village, playing in streets they might soon lose. In her apartment, Amanda spent the night meticulously studying the case, identifying every flaw in Blackwell Enterprises' documents, every contradiction, every sign of manipulation. By dawn, she had an action plan and a new professional perspective. Using her personal savings, she rented a small office space just a few blocks from Hope Village. It was nothing compared to the luxurious office she had left behind, just a desk, a few chairs, and a computer. But it was a start. On the door, a simple sign: Amanda Reynolds, Social Justice Law. In the days that followed, she divided her time between preparing Hope Village's defense and getting to know the community better. Every story she heard, every family she met, strengthened her determination to do the right thing. A week after her resignation, Amanda received an unexpected visitor at her new modest office. Mrs. Jenkins, Judge Miller's secretary, stood at the door, surveying the simple surroundings with an approving look. "So the rumors are true," she said, stepping in without waiting for an invitation. "The great Ms. Reynolds really traded luxury for purpose." Amanda smiled, offering the woman a chair. "News travels fast." "It's not just news," Mrs. Jenkins replied, sitting down. "It's stories people tell, and believe me, your story is making the rounds in the courthouse halls. The ruthless lawyer who threw it all away to defend a poor community." "I didn't throw it all away, Mrs. Jenkins. I just remembered why I chose this profession in the first place." The secretary nodded, satisfied with the answer. "Judge Miller would like to see you. Unofficially, of course. It wouldn't be proper, given the ongoing case, but he asked me to suggest coffee in Central Park tomorrow at 10 a.m. Just two acquaintances meeting casually in a public space. Amanda hesitated, concerned about the ethical implications. "Don't worry," Mrs. Jenkins reassured her, as if reading her thoughts. "Judge Miller is strictly ethical. He won't discuss the case directly, but he might have some general information that could be useful." The next morning, Amanda found Judge Miller sitting on a bench near the park's lake. He was feeding the ducks pieces of bread with Ethan by his side, laughing at each excited quack. Amanda approached cautiously, unsure how the boy would react to seeing her. To her surprise, Ethan was the first to notice. "Daddy, look, it's the lawyer with hair like Mommy's," he exclaimed, pointing. Judge Miller stood up with a discreet smile. "Good morning, Ms. Reynolds. What a pleasant coincidence." Amanda returned the smile, playing along. "Good morning, Judge Miller. Ethan, truly a beautiful morning for a walk in the park." To her surprise, Ethan ran up to her holding a piece of bread. "Do you want to feed the ducks too?" he offered, without a trace of the fear he had shown before. "I'd love to," Amanda replied, genuinely touched by the gesture. As Ethan focused on the ducks, the judge took the opportunity to speak quietly. "I heard you're representing Hope Village now." "Yes, I've found substantial evidence of document fraud in Mrs. Blackwell's case." Amanda hesitated. "I hope it's not inappropriate to mention this." "We're just having a general conversation," the judge replied with a slight smile. "And, hypothetically speaking, if I were a judge reviewing a land dispute case, I'd be particularly interested in testimonies from people who had direct contact with the original owner and his stated intentions." Amanda nodded, picking up on the hint. "And also," the judge continued, watching Ethan play, "I'd be alert to any signs of intimidation toward the community during the legal proceedings. That could constitute obstruction of justice." "That's an important point," Amanda agreed. "Hypothetically speaking, of course." They fell silent for a moment, watching Ethan, who had now found other children and was playing happily. "He seems happier," Amanda remarked. "He's getting better, little by little," the judge said with a sigh. "Therapy sessions help, and having a routine." He turned to Amanda. "You know, when I saw that video from the mall, my first instinct was to sue you for emotional distress, protect my son at all costs." Amanda felt her face burn with shame. "I would have deserved it." "Probably," the judge agreed. "But then I realized it would just be another cycle of retaliation, another adult acting on impulse, without thinking about the real consequences for the child involved." He paused. "Ethan surprised me the next day when he asked about you." "About me?" Amanda was genuinely surprised. "Yes, he said, 'Daddy, that lady at the mall looked really sad inside, like when Mommy left.'" The judge smiled sadly. "Children have a perception we adults often lose." Amanda felt her eyes well up, moved by the boy's intuition. He was right. I am dealing with my own kind of grief. Grief for who I used to be, for what I sacrificed in the name of success." The judge nodded understandingly. "Emily, my wife, used to say it's never too late to find your way back home." He checked his watch. "We should go. Ethan has his therapy appointment." As the judge called his son, Amanda noticed a woman discreetly photographing them from a distance. A chill ran down her spine when she recognized one of Victoria Blackwell's personal assistants. In the days that followed, Amanda delved even deeper into the case, working side by side with Mr. Robert Johnson. Together, they collected detailed testimonies from longtime residents of Hope Village, especially those who had personally known Franklin Hope and were aware of his intentions for the land. One such testimony came from Mrs. Zoe, the philanthropist's former housekeeper, who not only confirmed the existence of the will favoring the community, but also revealed a crucial detail. Franklin had kept a diary where he recorded all his important decisions. "He wrote everything in that notebook," Mrs. Zoe said, "every single day without fail. He said it was his way of being accountable to posterity. And I clearly remember him writing about the decision to leave the lands to the community." "What happened to that diary?" asked Amanda, sensing it could be decisive evidence. "It disappeared along with the will after he passed," the elderly woman replied sadly. We think someone from the Blackwell family took it when they came to check. The belongings. All I know is I never saw it again." A new line of investigation opened up. If they could locate Franklin Hope's diary, they would have direct proof of his intentions, something that could dismantle Victoria Blackwell's claims. At the same time, Amanda began digging deeper into Blackwell Enterprises' history. Using her corporate connections, she uncovered a disturbing pattern of controversial land acquisitions across the city, always through legally questionable means. She was so absorbed in her research that she barely noticed the growing smear campaign against her. First came social column pieces, insinuating she'd had a nervous breakdown to explain her sudden change of allegiance. Then came more malicious rumors, suggesting unethical involvement in past cases. Amanda ignored it all, focusing solely on the case, until the day she arrived at her small office to find the door broken, drawers ransacked, and her computer stolen. Paul arrived minutes later, alarmed by the state of the place. "My God, Amanda! Are you okay? We need to call the police." "This wasn't a random break-in," Amanda said calmly, noting that only documents and electronics had been taken, while valuables like her imported coffee machine remained untouched. "It was a message, and I think I know who sent it." Victoria. "Blackwell?" Paul asked. "Likely on her orders." Amanda sighed, starting to clean up the mess. "Luckily, I keep digital backups of everything in cloud storage, and the original testimonies are stored elsewhere." Paul looked at her with admiration. "So you anticipated something like this could happen. I know Mrs. Blackwell's methods well." Amanda sat on an overturned chair, suddenly exhausted. "This just proves we're on the right track, Paul. They're worried." That night, Amanda received a call from William Parker, Victoria Blackwell's new lawyer. Amanda, what an unfortunate situation," he began with feigned concern. "I heard about the incident at your office. It's really dangerous working in that part of town." "Spare me the act, William. What do you want?" A dry laugh came from the other end. "Straight to the point as always, I like that about you." His voice turned serious. "I'm calling to offer a deal. Mrs. Blackwell is willing to overlook your, shall we say, professional betrayal if you drop the case and sign a confidentiality agreement about everything you know." "I'm not interested." "Don't be hasty. We're talking about significant financial compensation. Enough for you to open a real office, not that cubicle you're hiding in." Amanda felt her anger rise. "I'm not hiding, William. For the first time in my life, I'm facing the truth about what we do, about what I used to do." "Oh, spare me your newfound moral scruples," he shot back. "We both know it's just a phase. Sooner or later, you'll get tired of being poor and virtuous." "Maybe, but not today." Amanda took a deep breath. "Tell Mrs. Blackwell I'll see her in court." "You'll regret this," William threatened, all pretense of cordiality gone. "I already have a dossier on every questionable case you've ever taken, every ethical line you've crossed. By the time I'm done, your reputation will be so ruined, not even the most desperate non-profits will want to associate with you." "Do what you think is right, William." Amanda kept her voice steady, despite the fear she was beginning to feel. "But remember, archaeologists love to dig. You never know what they might uncover when they start excavating someone's past." After hanging up, Amanda remained seated in the dark of her apartment, reflecting on her choices. She had expected resistance, of course, but not the magnitude of retaliation she was facing. It was a painful reminder of the power people like Victoria Blackwell wielded, not just over land and property, but over lives and reputations. The next morning, Amanda was surprised by an unexpected presence at the door of the Hope Village Community Center. Little Ethan and Mrs. Jenkins were waiting for her. "Ethan insisted on coming," Mrs. Jenkins explained with a smile. "He heard from his father about what happened to your office and wanted to make sure you were okay." Amanda crouched down to the boy's height. "That was very kind of you, Ethan." The boy held out a pencil drawing. "I made this for you. It's a magic house that no one can break." Amanda felt a lump in her throat as she took the child's drawing of a house surrounded by what looked like a glowing shield. "It's the most beautiful gift I've ever received," she said sincerely. While Ethan explored the community center under Mrs. Robinson's watchful eye, Mrs. Jenkins stepped closer to Amanda. Mr. Miller is worried, she said quietly. He heard about the break-in and the threats. He thinks you should be careful. I am being careful, Amanda assured her. But I won't give up. Mrs. Jenkins smiled. He thought you'd say that. She handed Amanda a small card. This is the contact for a trusted private investigator, someone who might help you find evidence you can't get through conventional means. Amanda looked at the card hesitantly. Don't worry, Mrs. Jenkins reassured her. He works strictly within the law. He just knows where to look. With just over a week until the decisive hearing, Amanda grew increasingly convinced that the key to the case lay in Franklin Hope's missing diary. Following Judge Miller's suggestion, she focused on finding more people who had direct contact with the philanthropist in his final years. That was how she met Ernest, Candido's former driver, who had lived reclusively in a nursing home on the city's outskirts for years. At 92, Ernest's mind remained surprisingly sharp, especially when speaking about his former employer. Mr. Franklin was a man ahead of his time, he told Amanda as they sat in the nursing home garden. He always said property was a responsibility, not a privilege. That idle land was wasted land. Did you know about his intention to leave the property to the Hope Village community? Know about it? Ernest chuckled softly. My dear, I drove him there countless times. I saw when he helped the first families settle, when he donated materials for them to build their first homes. The elderly man adjusted his glasses. And yes, he showed me the will. I read with these very eyes that the land would go to them. Amanda felt her heart race. What about his diary? Do you remember it? Of course. Brown leather cover with his initials embossed in gold. He wrote in it every night. Ernest paused as if trying to recall something important. You know, there's one thing that might help. Mr. Franklin had a secret hiding spot in his library behind a false shelf. He kept important documents there. Always said he didn't trust safes. They were the first thing thieves looked for. Do you think the diary could still be there? The old man shrugged. It's possible, but the mansion was sold years ago after that woman, Victoria, showed up claiming to be his great-niece. Ernest shook his head. A brazen lie. Mr. Franklin only had one brother, who never married or had children. Are you absolutely certain about that? Positive. I worked for the family for over 40 years. I knew them all. This information was explosive. If they could prove that Victoria had no real blood relation to Franklin Hope, her entire case would crumble. Amanda immediately sought out the investigator recommended by Judge Miller. Derek Thompson was a discreet middle-aged man with a modest office and efficient methods. I need two things, Amanda explained. First, to find out the current whereabouts of the Hope Mansion and whether that library with the hidden compartment still exists. Second, to thoroughly investigate Victoria Blackwell's family tree and her supposed connection to Franklin Hope. Derek nodded, taking notes. The mansion will be easy to locate. As for the genealogy, that might be trickier, but I have contacts in civil registry offices across the country. We need this yesterday, Amanda stressed. The final hearing is in a week, and I suspect Mrs. Blackwell will try to speed things up even more once she realizes we're getting close to the truth. Her suspicions proved correct. The next day, Amanda received a notice that William Parker had requested the court to move up the final hearing, citing attempts at obstruction and intimidation by the defense. It's the world upside down, Paul remarked indignantly. They intimidate us, break into your office, and then claim we're the ones obstructing justice. It's a standard tactic, Amanda explained, accusing your opponent of exactly what you're doing. It creates confusion and divides the judge's attention. The request was denied by Judge Miller, who kept the original hearing date. This gave Amanda a few precious days to follow the emerging leads. Derek discovered that the old Hope Mansion had been sold by Victoria shortly after she claimed the inheritance, but it hadn't been demolished, as Amanda feared. Instead, it had been converted into a luxury boutique hotel, preserving much of the original structure, including the famous library. The problem, Derek explained, is that we can't just walk in and start searching for secret passages. We'd need a warrant, and I doubt we'd get one in time. Amanda thought for a moment. What if I stayed there? As a guest, I'd have access to the library, wouldn't I? Derek considered the idea. It could work, but it's risky. If someone recognizes you, it's a risk I have to take. That same evening, Amanda checked into the Hope Heritage Hotel, using her mother's maiden name and wearing sunglasses to reduce the chances of being recognized. The hotel was spectacularly luxurious, with every detail of the original mansion carefully preserved and highlighted. The receptionist proudly informed her that the library was the heart of the hotel, where guests could enjoy afternoon tea surrounded by rare books and antiques. Amanda waited until late at night when most guests had retired. The library was empty, except for a staff member who soon left, leaving her alone with thousands of books, and possibly the secret she was searching for. She remembered Ernest's words behind a false shelf. But which one? The library was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling shelves covering every wall. Amanda walked slowly, examining each section, looking for any anomaly, any sign of a hidden mechanism. After nearly an hour, she was about to give up when she noticed something, a section where the books seemed excessively dusty, as if rarely touched. Moving closer, she realized they weren't real books, but decorative boxes made to look like book spines. Behind that shelf could be the hiding place Ernest had mentioned. With her heart racing, Amanda tried to move the bookshelf first. Pushing, then pulling gently. Nothing happened. She was beginning to question the information when she decided to examine the fake books more closely. One of them, with the title Hope engraved on the spine, seemed slightly different from the others. When Amanda pulled it, she heard a soft click, and an entire section of the shelf moved a few inches outward. With trembling fingers, she pulled the shelf open, revealing a small compartment embedded in the wall. Inside was a carved wooden box. Carefully removing it, Amanda lifted the lid and found exactly what she was looking for. A brown leather notebook with the initials FH embossed in gold, along with several yellowed envelopes. She could hardly believe her luck. Quickly, she tucked the diary and documents into her bag, closed the hidden compartment and left the library, trying to appear casual despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Back in her room, Amanda spent the entire night examining the documents she had found. Franklin Hope's diary was a goldmine of information. Not only did it confirm his intention to donate the land to the community that had settled there, but it also contained detailed entries about his only brother and the absence of other relatives. Even more surprising, one of the envelopes held a copy of the original will, signed by Franklin and 2 witnesses, including Ernest, the driver. The document clearly stated that the land in Hope Village should be formally transferred to a community association to be formed by the residents. Another envelope contained old photos of Franklin with the first settlers of the village, proving his direct involvement in establishing the community. Amanda could barely contain her excitement. This evidence, combined with the testimonies they had already gathered, would be more than enough to expose Victoria Blackwell's fraud. But her euphoria was interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. Quickly hiding the documents, Amanda opened it to find 2 hotel security guards with stern expressions. "Ms. Davis?" one asked, using the fake surname she had provided. "We need you to come with us." "Is there a problem?" Amanda asked, trying to stay calm. "Management was informed that you may have removed items from the hotel's private library. We need to check your room." A chill ran down Amanda's spine. Someone had recognized her. Someone connected to Victoria Blackwell. "Of course," she agreed, knowing resistance would only make things worse. "But I'd like to make a quick call first, if you don't mind." The guards exchanged glances. "Make it fast." Amanda grabbed her phone and, pretending to call a friend, quickly sent a message to Paul with her location and a clear instruction. "Come now, bring Derek, I found the evidence." As the guards methodically searched the room, Amanda kept her expression neutral, grateful she'd had the presence of mind to hide the documents inside her copy of the Constitution, which she'd brought in her bag. The last place hotel security would look. "We didn't find anything," the older guard finally said, looking confused. "Our apologies for the inconvenience, Ms. Davis." "No problem. I understand you're just doing your job." As soon as they left, Amanda quickly gathered her things. She needed to leave the hotel immediately, before someone decided to conduct a more thorough search, or worse, call the police. In the lobby, she settled her bill and stepped out into the dark early morning, feeling both exhausted and electrified. In her bag, she carried evidence that could forever change the fate of Hope Village. Paul and Derek were waiting on the corner, just as planned. Quickly, the three of them moved to a safe location where Amanda could finally show what she had found. "This is unbelievable," exclaimed Paul, carefully flipping through the diary. "With this, there's no way we can lose." "It's not that simple," Amanda cautioned. "These documents were obtained in an unconventional way. Judge Miller might consider them inadmissible." "But they prove the truth," Paul argued. "The truth isn't always enough in court, unfortunately," Amanda replied. "We need to find a way to introduce this evidence without compromising its admissibility." Derek, who had been silently observing until then, spoke up. "What? If we focus not on how we got the documents, but on the fact that they exist, we could officially request that the hotel check the hiding spot now that we know where it is." "A search warrant?" Amanda considered the idea. "It could work, but we'd need a judge willing to issue one based on our claims. And we have just the judge," Paul added with a hopeful smile. Amanda shook her head. "We can't involve Judge Miller directly. It would be an obvious conflict of interest. William Parker would use that to question the entire fairness of the trial." The three fell silent, contemplating their options. "What if we use the documents not as direct evidence, but as a map?" Amanda finally suggested. "They tell us exactly what to look for and where. We can follow the leads legally. The will mentions names of witnesses we haven't located yet. The diary talks about official records we can request." "Detective, work in plain sight," Derek agreed. "Using what we've learned here to find admissible evidence." "Exactly." Amanda felt a renewed energy. "And we only have 5 days to do it." The next morning, the trio split up to pursue different leads. Paul set out to find the additional witnesses mentioned in the will. Derek focused on investigating Victoria Blackwell's genealogy, now armed with precise information about the Hope family. Amanda, meanwhile, concentrated on preparing the legal arguments and organizing all the documentation they already had. Time was short, and they knew Victoria Blackwell and her lawyer wouldn't stay idle. The news that Amanda had been spotted at the Hope Heritage Hotel had surely reached them by now, and countermeasures were likely being taken against any evidence that might surface. On the eve of the decisive hearing, Amanda met with the residents of Hope Village community to prepare them for the next day. The community center was packed, with entire families present, all eager for updates. "I can't promise we'll win tomorrow," Amanda said honestly, "but I can promise we'll give Victoria Blackwell the fight of her life. The truth is on our side, and we've done everything humanly possible to make sure that truth is heard." Mrs. Robinson, who had become something of a mentor to Amanda in those weeks, stood up with difficulty. "When you first came here, Ms. Amanda, many of us doubted. We thought you were just another rich lawyer playing at being a good person." The elderly woman smiled, her eyes shining with a mix of wisdom and emotion. "But you proved us wrong. No matter what happens tomorrow, you've already given us something we hadn't had in a long time: hope." A murmur of agreement spread through the room, followed by spontaneous applause. Amanda felt her eyes well up, moved by the show of trust. As people began to disperse, Amanda noticed a familiar figure at the entrance of the center. Little Ethan, accompanied by Mrs. Jenkins. She approached them, surprised. "Ethan? Mrs. Jenkins? What are you doing here?" Ethan insisted on coming, Mrs. Jenkins explained with a smile. "I said he wanted to give good luck to the brave lawyer." The boy held out a small object, a star-shaped origami. "My dad said you're going to fight for those people tomorrow," he said with the seriousness only children can muster. "I made this lucky star for you." Amanda took the delicate origami, deeply moved by the gesture. "It's the most beautiful star I've ever seen, Ethan. Thank you." After they left, Amanda remained in the empty community center, the origami in one hand and all the case documents in the other. Two opposing representations of what was at stake: a child's innocence, the complexity of the law, and in the middle, her, searching for a path to redemption. Her thoughts were interrupted by her phone. It was Paul calling with urgent news. "Amanda, we did it. Derek found the original birth certificate for Victoria. She wasn't born a Blackwell. Her maiden name was Thompson. There's no possible genealogical connection to the Hope family." "That's perfect, Paul." Amanda felt a wave of relief. "With this, we can dismantle her entire argument about being the rightful heir." "There's more. I found Martha," the housekeeper mentioned, in the will as a witness. "She confirmed everything we suspected and is willing to testify tomorrow." The pieces were finally falling into place. Amanda hung up, feeling more confident than she had at any point since taking the case. Tomorrow would be the day of truth. On the morning of the decisive hearing, Amanda arrived at the courthouse early, wearing a simple yet elegant outfit. She had let her hair down again, no longer worried about the unsettling resemblance to Emily Miller. In a way, that coincidence now seemed like a sign she was on the right path. The residents of Hope Village were already starting to arrive, many dressed in their best clothes, some bringing small children. Amanda greeted each one, reminding them of the importance of staying calm during the hearing, no matter what happened. Victoria Blackwell arrived shortly after, accompanied by William Parker and a team of assistants. She looked impeccable in an expensive white pantsuit, wearing a confident smile that didn't reach her cold eyes. "Amanda, darling," she greeted with false warmth. "There's still time to avoid a public spectacle. My offer stands." "Thank you, Victoria, but I'd rather trust in justice." Victoria's smile faltered for a moment. "Justice? Don't be naive, it's about power. Always has been." She adjusted a diamond earring. "Do you really think a few old documents and the testimony of senile servants will outweigh decades of influence my family has built in this city?" Before Amanda could respond, the courtroom doors opened. Judge Nathan Miller was already in. His seat, his calm and impartial expression revealing nothing of his personal opinions. The hearing began with the usual formalities. William Parker presented Blackwell Enterprises' arguments first, displaying the same questionable documents Amanda had already identified as problematic, now with an added veneer of legitimacy provided by document experts. When it was Amanda's turn, she rose calmly, feeling the weight of Hope Village's hopes on her shoulders. "Your Honor, before presenting our evidence, I'd like to call our first witness, Mrs. Martha Williams, former housekeeper for the Hope family." An elderly woman of about 80 was respectfully escorted to the witness stand. In a firm voice despite her age, Martha described her decades-long relationship with the Hope family, emphasizing that Franklin had no nieces or grandnieces, and that he had expressly stated his intention to leave the land to the community. "I was there when he signed the will," stated Martha. "He asked me to be one of the witnesses. Said it was his way of ensuring the land served a greater purpose." William Parker tried to discredit her testimony during cross-examination, suggesting her advanced age might affect her memory. "Do you truly expect us to believe you remember perfectly something that happened over 30 years ago?" he asked dismissively. Martha looked him straight in the eye. "Young man, I may not remember what I had for breakfast, but I remember perfectly the day Mr. Franklin called me into his office and said, 'Martha, I want you to witness something important. I'm leaving Hope Village to the people who built it. Some memories, counselor, are etched in the soul, not just the brain." A murmur of approval swept through the courtroom, quickly silenced by the judge. Amanda continued, presenting the original birth certificate of Victoria, proving she had no blood relation to the Hope family. As the court can see, Mrs. Blackwell was born Victoria Thompson, with no genealogical connection to Franklin Hope. Her alleged claim to the inheritance is based on deliberate fraud. William Parker stood up, furious. "Objection, Your Honor. This is a serious and baseless accusation." "It's not baseless, Mr. Parker," Amanda replied calmly. "We have here the complete Hope family tree, certified by the National Archives, which shows no connection to the Thompson family." Judge Miller examined the documents with meticulous care. "Objection overruled. The evidence is relevant to the case." Amanda continued presenting witnesses and documents, methodically building the community's case. Finally, she revealed her most compelling evidence, old photographs showing Franklin Hope personally helping build the first homes in the village, proving his direct involvement and clear intent to support the community. When Amanda finished her presentation, the courtroom fell silent. Even William Parker seemed momentarily speechless in the face of the mountain of evidence against his client. Victoria Blackwell, however, wasn't ready to concede. During the recess, she was seen making frantic calls, and when the session resumed, she appeared confident again. William then presented an expert who questioned the authenticity of the photographs and documents Amanda had submitted. It was a desperate attempt to cast doubt on clear evidence, but Amanda was prepared. In her final rebuttal, Amanda addressed not just the judge, but everyone in the room. "Your Honor, this case isn't just about documents and deeds. It's about justice. It's about recognizing that an entire community built their lives, raised their children, and buried their loved ones on that land. It's about honoring Franklin Hope's true intent, a man who believed property came with responsibility." She paused, looking directly at Victoria. "Mrs. Blackwell has presented questionable documents, contradictory testimonies, and a claim of kinship we now know is false. On the other side, we have decades of living history, first-hand witnesses of Franklin's wishes, and a community that embodies everything he valued. The choice, Your Honor, seems clear." Judge Miller listened to both closing arguments with a neutral expression, giving little indication of his decision. Finally, he announced he needed time to consider all the evidence and would issue his ruling within 48 hours. When the session adjourned, Amanda was immediately surrounded by residents of Hope Village, all eager for her assessment. "We did everything we could," she said honestly. "We presented the truth as clearly as possible. Now we must trust the process." Mrs. Robinson squeezed her hand with surprising strength for someone her age. "You gave us a voice, my dear. No matter what happens, this is already a victory." Across the room, Amanda saw Victoria Blackwell watching her with a calculating expression. There was no anger in her gaze, just a cold assessment, as if she were planning her next move. As she left the courthouse, Amanda noticed young Ethan sitting on a bench in the hallway waiting for his father. When he spotted her, the boy ran toward her. "Did you win?" he asked eagerly. Amanda crouched to his level. "We don't know yet, Ethan. Your father needs to think about everything he heard today." "He'll do the right thing," Ethan declared, with the absolute confidence only a child could have. "He always does." Amanda smiled, touched by the boy's simple faith. "I hope so, Ethan, I hope so." For the next 48 hours, Amanda barely slept. She mentally reviewed every argument, every document, every moment of the hearing, trying to anticipate the judge's decision. She knew she had done all she could, but she was also aware of Victoria Blackwell's power and influence. When she finally returned to the courthouse to hear the verdict, she found the room even more crowded than before. It seemed like the entire Hope Village community was there, along with journalists and onlookers who had heard about the case. The elite lawyer who had switched sides to defend a poor community against a powerful developer. Victoria Blackwell entered with her usual air of superiority, but Amanda noticed something different in her eyes, a tension, a faint trace of worry that hadn't been there before. Judge Miller entered, and the room fell completely silent. His face bore the same neutral, professional expression as always. "After careful consideration of all the evidence presented," he began, "this court has reached a decision in the case of Blackwell Enterprises versus Hope Village Community." Amanda held her breath, feeling Paul squeeze her arm in support. The evidence presented by the defense clearly demonstrates that Franklin Hope had the unequivocal intention of bequeathing the land in question for the use of the community now known as Hope Village. Furthermore, Mrs. Victoria Blackwell's claims regarding her relation to Mr. Hope could not be substantiated by verifiable documentation. Amanda felt a surge of hope, but remained alert, knowing court rulings often had twists. "Therefore," the judge continued, "this court rules in favor of Hope Village Community, recognizing its right to remain on the land and ordering the establishment of a formal association that will receive the definitive property title in accordance with Franklin." Hope's original intent. A wave of joy swept through the room. Residents hugged each other, some openly weeping. Amanda could hardly believe it. They had won. Victoria Blackwell stood abruptly, her face twisted in fury, and left the room without a word, followed by William Parker, who was already muttering about an appeal. Judge Miller struck the gavel one last time. Court adjourned. When Amanda finally managed to pull herself free from the emotional embraces of the residents, she found herself face to face with Judge Miller in the hallway. "Your Honor," she greeted formally, aware of the eyes on them. "Ms. Reynolds," he replied with equal formality, though with a barely perceptible smile in his eyes. "An impressive performance. My congratulations." "Thank you, Your Honor. I just followed the evidence." The judge nodded. "That's exactly what we expect from a good lawyer." He paused. "Ethan asked if you might join us for dinner sometime. To celebrate, as he puts it, your victory against the bad people." The judge smiled faintly. "I realize this might seem inappropriate, but I'd love to," Amanda replied sincerely. "Once the dust settles and the case is formally closed, of course." "Of course," agreed the judge. "Until then, take care, Ms. Reynolds. I suspect Mrs. Blackwell won't accept this defeat easily." He was right. In the week following the decision, Amanda faced a wave of retaliation. Her reputation was attacked in gossip columns. Former friends from the corporate world avoided her, as if she carried a contagious disease. And there were even attempts to file ethics complaints against her with the Bar Association, all eventually dismissed for lack of merit. But for every door that closed, several others opened. Communities in situations similar to Hope Village began reaching out to her. Young, freshly graduated lawyers volunteered at her small firm. Journalists interested in social justice wanted to tell her story. Amanda knew she had chosen a harder, less profitable path, but one infinitely more meaningful. Every time she visited Hope Village and saw children playing freely, elders chatting on the sidewalks, families building futures, she felt a satisfaction no corporate victory had ever given her. One afternoon, as she organized her office, now slightly larger thanks to the growing demand for her services, Amanda received an unexpected visitor. Victoria Blackwell, without her usual entourage of assistants, stepped in quietly. "Victoria," Amanda greeted, surprised. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I," Victoria replied, eyeing the modest office with curiosity. "Interesting career choice, Amanda, from luxury to charity." "It's not charity," Amanda corrected calmly. "It's justice." Victoria gave a faint smile. "Always so noble." She sat uninvited. "I came with a proposal. I thought we were past proposals at this point." "One is never past business, darling." Victoria crossed her legs elegantly. "I've given up appealing the Hope Village decision. You won, congratulations." Amanda waited, knowing there was more. "But I have other projects, other properties." Victoria pulled an envelope from her bag. "And instead of spending millions, fighting you at every turn, I thought, why not bring you back? Back. To the right side, the profitable side." Victoria opened the envelope, revealing a contract. "I'm offering you the position of Social Responsibility Advisor at Blackwell Enterprises. 6-figure salary, exceptional benefits, and a real chance to influence how we develop new areas. That way, you can keep feeling noble, and I can avoid further setbacks like Hope Village." Amanda stared at the contract, genuinely stunned by Victoria's audacity. "You really think I'd accept?" "Why not?" Victoria shrugged. "Everyone has a price, Amanda. We just need to find yours." Amanda stood and walked to the window. From there, she could see a small square where children played. She thought of Ethan, the origami star he'd given her, now framed on her wall. She thought of Mrs. Robinson, of Paul, of everyone in Hope Village who had trusted her when they had no reason to. "You know, Victoria, you're wrong," she said finally, turning back. "Not everyone has a price. Some people have principles." She picked up the contract and handed it back. "My answer is no." Victoria looked genuinely surprised. "You're turning down 10 times what you must earn here." "Why?" "Because I've finally found something money can't buy. Peace of mind." Amanda opened the office door. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have clients waiting, real people with real problems who need real help." After Victoria left, Amanda remained still for a moment, processing what had just happened. Just a few months ago she would have signed that contract without a second thought. Today, the idea of returning to her old life seemed utterly absurd. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Paul, with news about a new case, a community school threatened, with closure in the far south of the city. "We're short on time, Amanda. The preliminary hearing is next week. Do you think we can do it?" Amanda smiled, already feeling the familiar surge of determination rising within her. "We've got a chance, Paul, and sometimes that's all we need." 6 months had passed since the victory in the Hope Village case. Amanda's small office now had 3 associate lawyers, young idealists who had been inspired by her story, and a secretary, Lauren, a resident of Hope Village herself, who was attending night classes at Columbia Law School. Amanda had become something of a reluctant celebrity in New York City's social justice circles. Alternative newspapers called her the lawyer who rediscovered her conscience, while more traditional publications painted her as a class traitor who had abandoned a promising career for an ideological whim. That Friday morning, Amanda was reviewing the details of her latest victory, saving a community school in the far south of the city, which a major supermarket chain had planned to demolish to expand its parking lot. As she made notes for a preemptive appeal, knowing the supermarket chain wouldn't give up easily, she heard a soft knock at the door. "Come in," she called, without looking up from the documents. "Ms. Amanda?" A familiar child's voice made her lift her head immediately. Ethan stood in the doorway, holding Mrs. Jenkins's hand. The boy, now nearly 8, looked taller and more confident than Amanda remembered. His shy smile, however, remained the same. "Ethan, what a wonderful surprise," Amanda exclaimed, rising to greet them. "Mrs. Jenkins, it's so good to see you, too." "We came to deliver this in person," Mrs. Jenkins explained, as Ethan handed Amanda an envelope. It was a handwritten invitation, decorated with colorful drawings of stars and what looked like people holding hands. "It's for my birthday party," Ethan announced proudly. "I'm turning 8 on Sunday." Amanda felt unexpectedly moved. She had never imagined she'd be invited to such a personal event in the boy's life. "I'd love to come, Ethan. Thank you so much for inviting me." "Dad said you might be busy saving more people," the boy continued. "But I told him you have to rest too, or you'll look as tired as you did that day at the mall." Amanda couldn't help but laugh at his childlike honesty. "Your dad is right about a lot of things, but this time you've got a point. I definitely need to rest sometimes." Mrs. Jenkins smiled, watching the exchange. "Mr. Miller will be happy to see you there." She paused meaningfully. "In fact, I think he'll be very happy." There was something in Mrs. Jenkins's tone that made Amanda blush slightly. Over the past few months since the Hope Village case had officially closed, Amanda had dined a few times with Nathan and Ethan. Casual meetings always centered around the boy, but they had gradually built a genuine friendship between the adults. "It'll be a pleasure to see you both," Amanda replied diplomatically, though she felt a slight flutter in her stomach at the thought of seeing Nathan outside their usual dinner routine. After Ethan and Mrs. Jenkins left, Amanda stared at the invitation, a thoughtful smile on her face. How life could change so completely in such a short time. Less than a year ago, she was the feared corporate attorney, sacrificing relationships, principles, and even her own peace of mind on the altar of professional success. Today, the intercom interrupted her thoughts. "Ms. Reynolds," called Lauren. From reception, "There's a woman here insisting on speaking with you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. Her name is Dorothy Gardner." Amanda didn't recognize the name, but emergencies were common in her new type of practice. "Send her in, Lauren." The woman who entered her office appeared to be around 60 years old, dressed simply but with dignity, her face marked by a worried expression Amanda had learned to recognize well, the look of someone who had already knocked on many closed doors before arriving here. "Ms. Reynolds, thank you so much for seeing me," she began, carefully sitting in the offered chair. "My name is Dorothy. I'm a seamstress, and I've lived in Spring Gardens for over 30 years. "How can I help you, Mrs. Gardner?" Then the woman took a deep breath as if gathering courage. "It's about our community. We received eviction notices 2 weeks ago. A company called New Horizon Development Group claims they bought the land and that we have 60 days to leave. Amanda picked up a notepad. How many families would be affected? More than 200, Dorothy answered, her voice trembling. Many of us built our homes with our own hands. We raised our children there. We buried our loved ones in the local cemetery. We have nowhere to go. The situation sounded painfully familiar. Another long-established community facing removal to make way for some profitable development. It was exactly the kind of case Amanda now embraced. Did you bring the notice? So I'd like to see the documentation. Dorothy opened a worn folder and handed over several papers. Amanda began examining them with professional focus, but froze when she saw the logo on the letterhead. New Horizon Development Group, a subsidiary of Blackwell Enterprises. Victoria Blackwell, again. Mrs. Gardner, do you know what kind of development they plan to build there? They say it's a luxury residential complex, the woman replied bitterly. But to build that, they want to destroy hundreds of real homes. Amanda continued reviewing the documents, a sense of déjà vu growing with each page. The same methods, the same intimidating legal language, the same presumption of inevitability. Victoria hadn't learned anything from her defeat in Hope Village, or perhaps she had learned exactly the wrong lesson. I'll help you, Mrs. Gardner, Amanda decided. This notice has several irregularities we can challenge immediately. The older woman's eyes filled with tears. Thank God. I knew you wouldn't turn us away. Everyone in Hope Village speaks of you as some kind of angel. Amanda smiled, embarrassed by the exaggerated praise. I'm no angel, Mrs. Gardner. I'm just trying to correct some of the injustice I helped create for years. She paused. You mentioned Hope Village. Did someone from there send you to me? Yes, my niece lives there. She told me everything you did for their community, how you stood up to that rich, powerful woman, that Blackwell. Well, it seems we'll be standing up to her again, Amanda said, feeling renewed determination. But this time, we'll be better prepared. After Mrs. Gardner left, promising to return the next day with other community representatives, Amanda leaned back in her chair, thoughtful. It was no coincidence that Victoria Blackwell was attempting another mass eviction so soon after her defeat in Hope Village. It felt like retaliation, a way of saying one loss wouldn't stop her. Amanda picked up the phone and called Paul, now her official associate at the firm. Paul, we need to talk about Spring Gardens. We have a new battle ahead. In the days that followed, Amanda immersed herself in the investigation into Spring Gardens and the New Horizon Development Group. She discovered that, unlike Hope Village community, the legal situation of this community was more complex. The land had passed through several owners over the decades, with confusing and overlapping documentation. New Horizon, that is, Victoria Blackwell, seemed to have a stronger chain of ownership this time, with apparently legitimate property, titles. But Amanda knew from experience that appearances could be deceiving, especially when Victoria was involved. On Saturday, the day before Ethan's birthday, Amanda visited Spring Gardens to get to know the community better. Like Hope Village, it was a vibrant place, built through hard work and determination. Simple but well-kept houses, small local businesses, a church, a community school. An entire life that Victoria Blackwell wanted to sweep away to make room for luxury apartments. As she spoke with the residents, gathering stories and information, Amanda noticed something curious. Many mentioned that the land had originally belonged to an old ranch called Spring Valley, owned by the Thompson family. Thompson, Victoria, Blackwell's maiden name. A new piece of the puzzle fell into place in her mind. Could this community have some personal connection to Victoria? Something beyond just the commercial value of the land? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Back at her apartment, Amanda spent the night researching the Thompson family and Spring Valley Ranch. She discovered that the property had indeed belonged to Victoria's family 3 generations ago, but was sold when they faced financial difficulties long before Victoria was born. The new owners had gradually allowed workers to build homes on the unused part of the ranch, giving rise to the current community. Was Victoria using her new real estate empire to reclaim lands that once belonged to her family? It was an interesting theory, but Amanda would need more information. On Sunday, however, she decided to set the case aside temporarily. It was Ethan's birthday, and she had promised to be there. The party was at Judge Miller's apartment, a spacious 3-bedroom, in an elegant but understated building in Brooklyn Heights. Amanda arrived promptly at 3 p.m., bringing a carefully chosen gift, a beginner's telescope, after learning in one of their conversations that Ethan was fascinated by stars. Mrs. Jenkins answered the door, wearing a festive dress and a warm smile. "Come in, dear. You look lovely." Amanda had taken unusual care with her appearance, opting for a casual yet elegant light blue dress. Her hair, which she now often wore down, fell in natural waves over her shoulders. The apartment was decorated with a space theme, planets. Stars and astronauts hung from the ceiling and adorned the walls. About 10 children ran around laughing, while a few adults, likely parents, chatted in small groups. Ethan ran to her as soon as he saw her. "You came!" he exclaimed, hugging her impulsively. "Of course I did, I promised, didn't I?" Amanda handed him the gift. "Happy birthday, Ethan." The boy took the present eagerly, but before he could open it, Nathan Miller approached. Out of his robes and the formal courtroom setting, he looked younger and more relaxed, wearing jeans and a blue shirt that brought out his eyes. "Amanda, I'm so glad you could make it," he said, with a smile that seemed to light up his whole face. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," she replied, suddenly aware of the warmth in her cheeks. The last barriers of formality seemed to have dissolved in that casual setting. Nathan led her to meet the other guests, colleagues from the courthouse, parents of Ethan's friends, family. Amanda watched how he interacted with everyone, attentive and present, especially with the children. When Ethan opened his gift, his reaction was better than Amanda could have hoped. "A real telescope!" he shouted, jumping with excitement. "Dad, look! Now we can see the stars up close." "It's a wonderful gift, Amanda," Nathan said with a look that conveyed so much more than simple gratitude. For the rest of the party, Amanda found herself constantly in Nathan's company, while Ethan and his friends enjoyed games organized by an entertainer. The two talked about everything and nothing. Interesting cases, favorite books, movies, places they'd like to visit. It was strange, Amanda thought, how she had never really known Nathan Miller, the man, only the judge. And the more she got to know him, the more she was drawn not just to his sharp intellect, but to his kindness, his devotion to his son, his surprisingly quick wit. When most of the guests had left, and Ethan was showing off his new telescope to his last remaining little friend, Nathan offered Amanda a glass of wine and led her to the apartment balcony. "Thank you for coming," he said, as they leaned against the railing, watching the sunset over the city. "It meant a lot to Ethan." "It was my pleasure," Amanda replied sincerely. "He's an amazing boy. You've done a wonderful job raising him alone." Nathan sighed, gazing at the horizon. "I try my best, but it's not easy. Emily was the heart of our family. When she left—" He paused, choosing his words. It was like the color had drained from the world. Ethan felt it more than anyone. Amanda listened quietly, giving him space to continue. "But little by little the color started coming back," he went on, turning to look at her. "And lately, it feels like we're rediscovering how to really live again, not just survive." There was something in his gaze, an unspoken question, a possibility. "You know what Ethan told me the other day?" Nathan asked with a small smile. He said, "Dad, I think lawyer Amanda makes you smile like in the pictures with Mom." Amanda felt her heart race. "And is he right?" she asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Nathan gently took her hand. "Completely right." "Amanda, The moment was interrupted by the sound of the doorbell. Mrs. Jenkins, who had been helping tidy the kitchen, went to answer. "Amanda," she called moments later with a worried expression. "It's for you. A young man named Paul. He says it's urgent." With an apologetic glance at Nathan, Amanda went to take the call. Paul sounded agitated. "Sorry to interrupt, Amanda, but I thought you should know right away. New Horizons started fencing off Spring Gardens today, even though it's Sunday. They're trying to intimidate the residents, saying the eviction process will start tomorrow. What? But that's completely illegal. There hasn't even been a hearing yet at exactly. Some residents are resisting and the situation is getting tense. The police have already been called. Amanda felt the familiar wave of outrage and urgency. People were being bullied, possibly on the verge of losing their homes. She couldn't ignore it. I'm on my way there now, she decided. She returned to the balcony where Nathan waited, his expression concerned. Trouble? Yes, an emergency with the Spring Gardens community. Amanda quickly explained the situation. I have to go. I'm sorry to leave like this. Nathan nodded in understanding, but Amanda saw the disappointment in his eyes. I get it. Go do what you need to do. Can we continue this conversation later? She asked hesitantly. His smile returned, genuine. I'll be eagerly waiting. Upon arriving at Spring Gardens, Amanda found a scene of tension. Men in private security uniforms were setting up fences around the community, while police officers watched from a distance. Residents were protesting, forming a human chain to block the advance of the fences. Mrs. Dorothy ran to Amanda as soon as she saw her. Thank God you're here. They showed up out of nowhere, saying the eviction order has already been approved, but we never received any official notice. Amanda quickly assessed the situation. She needed to stop this illegal action immediately. She approached who appeared to be the supervisor of the operation, a burly man with a radio. Excuse me, I'm Amanda Reynolds, the attorney representing the Spring Gardens community. I need to see the court order authorizing this action. The man looked at her with disdain. I don't have to show you anything, we're just following orders. Without a valid court order, what you're doing constitutes trespassing and attempted. Forced removal, both criminal offenses under the law. Amanda kept her voice steady. So either show me the order, or I'll ask these officers to intervene against you. The supervisor hesitated, clearly not expecting organized legal resistance. Talk to my boss, he finally said, grabbing his radio. She's on her way. Minutes later, a black luxury SUV parked nearby. Amanda wasn't surprised to see Victoria Blackwell step out, impeccable in an executive suit despite it being Sunday night. Amanda Reynolds, Victoria greeted with a cold smile. Why am I not surprised to find you here? Developed a special taste for interfering in my business. Just defending people from illegal actions, Victoria, Amanda replied calmly, like this attempted eviction without a court order. Victoria waved a dismissive hand. Mere bureaucratic details. The order will be issued tomorrow. We're just speeding up the inevitable. The law doesn't work that way, as you well know, Amanda crossed her arms. I'll have to ask you to withdraw your men immediately, or we'll take this matter formally. The two women locked eyes for a long moment, tension thick between them. Finally, Victoria gave a calculated smile. Fine, Amanda, you win this little skirmish. She gestured to the supervisor, who began ordering the men to stop. But the war has only just begun. This time I'm much better prepared. As the security team packed up their equipment, Victoria stepped closer to Amanda, speaking low so only she could hear. Do you know why this land is so important to me? She asked. It's personal. This land belonged to my family for generations before it was stolen by con artists who took advantage of my grandfather. So I was right, Amanda murmured. This is a family vendetta. I prefer to call it historical justice. Victoria's smile was icy. Something you should understand with your newfound social conscience. Justice doesn't mean evicting hundreds of innocent families, Victoria. They have nothing to do with what happened in the past. Collateral details, Victoria shrugged. You've chosen your side, Amanda, and I've chosen mine. We'll meet in court. With that, she returned to her car and drove off, leaving Amanda with the sinking feeling that this battle would be even harder than the last. Victoria wasn't just driven by financial interests, but by deep-rooted personal resentment. By the time the situation settled and Amanda could finally head home, it was well past midnight. Exhausted but satisfied at having prevented an illegal action, she was surprised to find Nathan sitting on the bench in her building's garden. Nathan, what are you doing here at this hour? He stood up, looking both determined and slightly embarrassed. I dropped Ethan off at my sister's place to sleep. She lives in the building next door. He took a deep breath. I didn't want to leave our conversation unfinished. Amanda felt a rush of warmth despite the cold night breeze. And what were you going to say? she asked softly. Nathan took a step forward, closing the distance between them. That. You brought color back into our world, mine and Ethan's. His voice was quiet but firm. That when you walked into that courtroom arrogant and relentless, I never imagined I'd be standing here feeling what I feel. Amanda couldn't suppress a small smile. And when I humiliated your son at the mall? Then I wanted to sue you for every penny you had, Nathan admitted, smiling too. But Ethan saw something in you that I only recognized much later. A lost person, not a bad one. Amanda felt tears forming in her eyes. I really was lost. For years, she looked at him. Until a 7-year-old boy and a stubborn judge showed me the way back. Nathan gently touched her face. Amanda Reynolds, I think I'm falling in love with you. Nathan Miller, I think I'm already in love with you. When their lips met, Amanda felt as if a circle had been completed. Somehow the universe had turned the worst mistake of her life, humiliating an innocent boy, into the bridge to her redemption and happiness. The following months were intense for Amanda, both professionally and personally. The Spring Gardens case proved even more complex than Hope Villages. Victoria Blackwell had learned from her past mistakes and built a legally stronger case this time. However, Amanda's research uncovered inconsistencies in Victoria's story. Historical documents showed that Spring Valley Ranch hadn't been stolen from the Thompson family, but was legally sold to settle debts left by Victoria's alcoholic grandfather, a fact she conveniently omitted from her narrative of historical justice. More importantly, Amanda discovered that subsequent owners had formally authorized the occupation of the ranch's non-productive land, initially as housing for farm workers and later as an established community. There were signed documents, albeit informal, that could be used to establish squatters' rights. Alongside the grueling work, Amanda and Nathan carefully built their relationship. Aware of the delicacy of the situation, a judge dating a lawyer, who often appeared in his courtroom, they maintained absolute professional discretion while privately nurturing an ever deeper connection. Ethan, far from feeling confused or threatened by this new presence in his life, seemed to flourish. At first, Amanda worried the boy might see her as an intruder, or worse, as someone trying to replace his mother. But Ethan, with the frankness of children, put that fear to rest. My mum's in heaven, he explained one evening as the three of them stargazed with his telescope. She's not coming back, but she'd be happy you're making my dad smile again. She always said smiles are important. The first hearing for the Spring Gardens case was assigned to another judge to avoid any conflict of interest, given Amanda and Nathan's relationship, which was no longer a secret in legal circles. Amanda faced William Parker again, this time even more aggressive and well-prepared. He attacked not only the legal arguments of the community, but also Amanda herself, insinuating that her relationship with a judge might be improperly influencing other magistrates. My client has serious concerns about the impartiality of this court, William declared during one of the hearings, given Ms. Reynolds' personal relationship with a respected member of the judiciary. Judge Montgomery, a 70-year-old man, with decades of experience, was unimpressed by the tactic. Mr. Parker, I suggest you focus on the merits of the case. My career began long before Ms. Reynolds was even born, and I have no intention of compromising it now over baseless insinuations. Despite the personal attacks, Amanda stood firm, methodically presenting the evidence she had gathered. Elderly witnesses confirmed the verbal agreements with the former landowners. Historical records contradicted Victoria's narrative about the unjust loss of the land. Urban law experts attested to the community's right to land regularization after decades of peaceful occupation. Unlike the Hope Village case, however, this one did not reach a quick resolution. Appeals were filed by both sides, expert opinions were requested, and new witnesses emerged. The case dragged on for months, testing the patience and endurance of everyone involved. During this time, Amanda, Nathan, and Ethan gradually built their own version of a family. Dinners together became routine. Amanda helped Ethan with his homework. Nathan would show up at Amanda's office with lunch on particularly stressful days. Small, everyday gestures that, when added up, created something precious and solid. One especially quiet evening, while Nathan prepared dinner and Ethan watched cartoons, Amanda found herself flipping through a photo album on the living room shelf. The pictures were of Emily, Nathan's late wife, in happy moments with her husband and son. Amanda had always avoided looking too closely at the photos, as if it were an invasion of privacy, but this time she felt drawn to the image of the woman whose absence had so deeply shaped Nathan and Ethan's lives. Yes, there was an undeniable physical resemblance between her and Emily. The same face shape, the same hair type. But beyond that, in the photos, Amanda saw the same genuine smile, the same spark of determination in the eyes that she herself used to have before the cynicism of corporate law hardened her. Nathan found her like that, gazing at the photographs. "I used to keep these photos tucked away," he said softly, sitting beside her. "It hurt too much to look at them. But Ethan insisted on bringing them back to the living room when you started coming over more often." "Does it bother him?" Amanda asked, concerned. "The resemblance, I mean." Nathan smiled sadly. "He says it's because his mother sent you to us. A very childlike theory." Amanda felt a lump in her throat. "And you? Does it bother you?" "At first, it scared me. I thought I was projecting, looking for replacements." Nathan took her hand. "But I soon realized that despite appearances, you're completely different people. And what I feel for you is unique, not an echo of the past." That night, Amanda slept at the apartment for the first time, not as a guest, but as someone beginning to find her place in that little family. The ruling in the Spring Gardens case finally came nearly a year after the proceedings began. Judge Montgomery, in a detailed and carefully reasoned decision, recognized the community's rights to the land, ordering New Horizon Development Group to cease any attempts at removal. More significantly, the judgment mandated the land regularization of Spring Gardens, granting residents permanent property titles after so many decades of uncertainty. It was a complete victory, even more impactful than the one in Hope Village. Victoria Blackwell's reaction was swift and predictable. A flood of appeals was filed immediately. Statements to the press decried the injustice of the decision. But this time, public opinion was clearly on the side of the community, thanks in part to Amanda's meticulous work in documenting the history of Spring Gardens and humanizing its residents through touching testimonies that were widely shared. The day after the ruling, while the community was still celebrating, Amanda received a surprising call. It was Evelyn Blackwell, Victoria's mother, requesting a private meeting. Intrigued and slightly apprehensive, Amanda agreed. They met at a discreet cafe in the city center. Evelyn, an elegant woman in her 70s, had the same calculating eyes as her daughter, but something in her expression suggested a weariness Victoria had yet to show. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Reynolds," Evelyn began after the formal greetings. "I imagine you're wondering why your opponent's mother wanted this meeting." "I admit I'm curious." Evelyn took a sip of her tea before continuing. "I want this war to end, not for Victoria's sake, but for the Thompsons." "The Thompsons?" "Yes, my birth family." Evelyn adjusted an antique bracelet on her wrist. "Victoria must have told you her version of the Spring Valley Ranch story, I assume, about how it was unjustly taken from our family." "She mentioned something along those lines, yes. It's a story I told her myself for many years." Evelyn sighed. "A kind lie to protect a child's pride." Amanda leaned in, intrigued. "What lie?" "The ranch wasn't stolen. It was lost to incompetence and vice. My father, Victoria's grandfather, was a compulsive gambler. He lost everything. The ranch, our townhouse, even the family jewels." The bitterness in her voice was palpable. "But a child shouldn't bear the shame of her grandfather's mistakes. So I crafted a different story, one of injustice, not weakness. And Victoria believed it. Not just believed it, she made it her life's mission." Evelyn gazed out the window, pensive. "When she married Richard Blackwell and began building their real estate empire, the first thing she did was track down all the old Thompson properties. One by one, she's been trying to reclaim them, as if avenging some historical wrong." Amanda finally understood Victoria's obsession. "Why are you telling me this now?" Evelyn met her eyes again. "Because this obsession is consuming my daughter, turning her into someone ruthless, someone I no longer recognize." She hesitated. "And because I found these." She pulled a yellowed envelope from her bag and slid it across the table. "Letters my father wrote before he left, confessing his mistakes, taking responsibility for losing everything, asking the family for forgiveness. Letters my mother hid from me, which I only found recently after her passing." Amanda picked up the envelope, uncertain. "What do you want me to do with these?" "Use them if necessary, to end this war, to show Victoria she's fighting ghosts that never existed." Evelyn's eyes glistened with unshed tears. It may be too late for her to change, but at least she could stop pursuing entire communities over a revenge built on lies. After the meeting with Evelyn, Amanda reflected deeply on what to do. Victoria's grandfather's letters would be a powerful weapon in the case, potentially dismantling her opponent's narrative entirely, but they would also expose a family's painful secrets publicly, something Amanda didn't take lightly. She decided to make one last attempt at a peaceful resolution before using the information. Surprisingly, Victoria agreed to meet her in her luxurious office overlooking Park Avenue. When Amanda entered, she found her alone, without the usual barrier of assistants and lawyers. "Are you here to offer me another settlement?" Victoria asked without preamble, gesturing to a chair. "Because if that's the case, you're wasting your time." "It's not a settlement, it's a truce," Amanda replied, refusing to sit. "And a truth you deserve to know." Amanda explained what she had uncovered through Evelyn without revealing the source at first. She spoke of the true history of Spring Valley Ranch, of the gambling grandfather, of the well-intentioned lie that had turned into a vengeful crusade. Victoria listened in silence, her face an impassive mask. Only her eyes, gradually hardening, revealed the impact of Amanda's words. "Lies," she finally said when Amanda finished. "Fabricated stories to discredit me." "No, Victoria." Amanda placed the envelope on the table. "These are your grandfather's letters. Your mother kept them all these years." "My mother?" The surprise was genuine. "You're saying my own mother is worried about you, about what this obsession is doing to your life?" Victoria picked up the envelope with slightly trembling hands but didn't open it. "What do you want, Amanda? Why are you doing this?" "Because I believe that, despite everything, you're an intelligent woman who built an empire with your own talent. You don't need to waste your life trying to correct imagined injustices." Amanda paused. "And because I think there's still time for you to find a better purpose for your fortune and influence." Victoria laughed, but the sound was hollow, devoid of humor. "You really think you can redeem me? Turn me into some corporate version of yourself, championing the poor and oppressed? No, I think you need to find your own path, but I know you're too smart to keep fighting a battle based on lies now. That you know the truth." A tense silence hung between them. Finally, Victoria tucked the envelope into her desk drawer. "I'll read these letters out of curiosity." Her tone hardened again. "But don't expect miracles, Amanda. I'm not you. I won't have some dramatic conversion because of a chance. Then counter with a child. I'm not expecting miracles, just a little peace for people who've done you no harm." Victoria didn't respond directly. Instead, she stood, signaling the meeting was over. "You've won this time, Amanda. New Horizon will drop the appeals in the Spring Gardens case, not out of sentimentality, but because I know when a battle isn't worth the cost anymore." It was more than Amanda had hoped for. "Thank you, Victoria." "Don't thank me yet." The cold smile returned. "Who knows what the future holds? Maybe we'll meet again in court." "Maybe," Amanda agreed, "but I sincerely hope it's under less adversarial circumstances." As she left the building, Amanda felt both exhausted and relieved. The battle for Spring Gardens was finally over, with a complete victory for the community. And though she had no illusions about an immediate change in Victoria Blackwell, she had planted a seed of truth that might eventually blossom. 2 weeks later, on a sunny Saturday, Amanda, Nathan, and Ethan visited Spring Gardens for the victory celebration. The entire community had gathered, turning the central square into a festival of colors, music, and food. Mrs. Dorothy, now president of the newly formed Residents Association, gave an emotional speech, thanking Amanda and her team for their tireless work. Children handed out flowers and drawings. Elders shared stories of decades in the community, now finally secure in their homes. Ethan, fascinated by it all, ran around eagerly, sampling foods and making new friends with the ease of children. Nathan and Amanda watched him with identical affectionate smiles. "He's so happy," commented Nathan, "so full of life." "Like everyone here," replied Amanda, looking around at the celebrating community. "This is what the law should serve, to protect simple joys like these." Nathan took her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. "You've found your way, Amanda. Your true purpose." "I found much more than that," she said, glancing at him, then at Ethan playing in the distance. "I found a second chance, a family." Nathan smiled, that smile that still made Amanda's heart race. "Speaking of family," he suddenly seemed nervous. "There's something I want to ask you." Amanda felt a flutter in her stomach. "What?" "Not here," he said, looking around at the crowd. "Later, when we're alone." That night, after putting an exhausted Ethan to bed, Nathan invited Amanda for one last walk before turning in. They strolled through the quiet neighborhood until they reached a small square they often visited. Under a starry sky, Nathan stopped and turned to Amanda. "When Emily left, I thought I'd never feel this kind of happiness again," he said, his voice soft but steady. "I believed my life would forever be split into before and after her, with the second part just a faded version of the first." Amanda listened in silence, her heart quickening with every word. "And then, by some twist of fate, you walked into our lives, not as a replacement, but as a new beginning, a different chapter, but just as precious." Nathan held both her hands. "Amanda Reynolds, you've taught me that the heart has an infinite capacity for love even after loss, that happiness isn't a limited resource, but something that can be rediscovered, reinvented." He knelt, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Would you do me the honor of sharing your life with ours? Of building a family together with all the chaos, joy, and challenges that come with it?" Tears streamed freely down Amanda's face as she looked at the simple yet elegant ring in the open box. "Yes," she answered, her voice trembling. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." When Nathan slid the ring onto her finger, Amanda felt her circle of redemption was complete. From a cold, ruthless lawyer who had once humiliated a boy over a childhood accident, she had become someone now invited to be a permanent part of his life. The universe, in its mysterious wisdom, had turned her worst moment into a path to her greatest happiness. The news of the engagement was met with joy by everyone who knew them. Ethan, in particular, was radiant at the prospect of having Amanda officially join their family. "So you'll live with us forever now?" he asked, examining the ring on Amanda's finger with childlike curiosity. "That's the plan," she replied, smiling. "Can we get a dog?" he added eagerly. "Dad always said our apartment was too small, but if we're going to be a bigger family..." Amanda and Nathan laughed at the boy's flawless logic. "We'll discuss it," Nathan promised, ruffling his son's hair. In the weeks that followed, as they made plans for the wedding and their life together, Amanda continued her work at the firm, now with a growing team of young lawyers committed to social justice. The success of the Hope Village and Spring Gardens cases had built a reputation that attracted both clients and idealistic talent. One afternoon, as she organized documents for a new case, a recycling cooperative facing eviction, Amanda received an envelope with no return address. Inside, she found only an elegant card with a few handwritten words. "Perhaps you were right about finding better purposes. The Thompson Foundation for Social Housing will be announced next month. VB." Amanda smiled, carefully tucking the card away. Some seeds took longer to sprout, but eventually they found their way to the light. On the wedding day, a simple ceremony in the botanical garden with only close friends and family, Amanda experienced a happiness she had never imagined possible. Ethan, proudly wearing his miniature suit, carried the rings with comical seriousness. Mrs. Robinson from Hope Village Community, Mrs. Dorothy from Spring Gardens, Paul, Lauren, and the entire office staff were there, along with some judges and courthouse employees who had become friends. As Nathan slid the ring onto her finger, Amanda looked at the small crowd gathered. People from worlds that once seemed irreconcilable, legal, corporate, community, all celebrating together. Boundaries she had helped tear down, bridges she had helped build. "I love you," Nathan said after the traditional "you may kiss the bride." "I love you," Amanda replied, feeling the words with every fiber of her being. At the reception, that followed while dancing with Ethan standing on her shoes, Amanda reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her here. A moment of thoughtless cruelty had transformed, through a series of unexpected events, into the greatest blessing of her life. Mrs. Jenkins approached, watching her with wise eyes. "You know, when I first saw you, I thought you were just another arrogant lawyer," the elderly woman confessed with a smile. "But Ethan saw something different. He told me after that day at the mall, 'That lady seems angry, but I think she's just sad inside.'" Amanda felt her eyes well up. "He was right, I was sad, empty, chasing things that brought no real satisfaction. And now?" Amanda looked at Nathan, chatting animatedly with friends, at Ethan, now running between guests, at her colleagues from the office, who had joined her on this new journey of purposeful law. "Now I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to do, with exactly the people I'm supposed to love." Mrs. Jenkins nodded, satisfied. "Then you found your true place in the world. There's no greater blessing than that." Years later, Amanda Reynolds Miller's small law firm had become a national reference in community law and social justice. With branches in 3 states, the firm specialized in defending vulnerable communities against forced evictions and other rights violations, helping to establish important precedents in American jurisprudence. Nathan remained on the bench, respected for his impartiality and commitment to both the letter and spirit of the law. Ethan, now a teenager, showed interest in both law and astronomy, a combination he explained as studying the laws of men and the laws of the stars. The small family had grown with the addition of Lily, a girl adopted at 5, who brought even more joy and some welcome mischief into their home. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, while the children played in the garden of the house they had bought, together, spacious enough for not just the dog Ethan had begged for, but also 2 rescued cats and an aquarium, Amanda found herself flipping through an old photo album. There she was in her old corporate office, with a stern expression and cold eyes. There was Ethan when she first saw him in court, scared and vulnerable. There were the residents of Hope Village celebrating their victory, and later those from Spring Gardens. And then the most recent photos: your wedding, the adoption of Lily, birthdays, graduations, legal victories, defeats that turned into lessons, everyday moments of a full and meaningful life. Nathan found her like this, lost in memories. "Nostalgia?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Gratitude," Amanda corrected, "for all the paths, even the painful ones, that brought us here." He smiled, that same smile that still made her heart skip a beat even after all these years. "You know what Ethan said the other day, that he wants to study law just like Mommy Amanda." Mommy Amanda, a title she had never expected but now carried as her greatest honor. "He's going to be an amazing lawyer," she said, with the confidence of someone who had watched the boy's character grow over the years. "No doubt." Nathan took her hand, the same one where the wedding band had shone for years. "And it all started with a spilled glass of juice." Amanda laughed, still amazed at the universe's strange economy, where even the most painful mistakes could turn into unexpected blessings if one had the courage to walk the path of redemption. Outside, the sound of children's laughter filled the afternoon air, the sweetest sound Amanda could have ever imagined in her old life, the sound of home, the sound of a second chance, fully embraced. End of story. And you? What did you think of Amanda's transformation? Do you believe she made the right choice by completely changing her life? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to leave a like. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next heartwarming stories.